Oh, hello.
Hello. I'm trying to stay perfectly still because Facebook always grabs this screenshot of me where I look ridiculous. So I figure if I stay perfect on the screen, then maybe it won't get me this time. Ugh, it's so crazy.
That's hilarious. And yes, I know what you mean. The internet, it freezes once in a while, and then yeah, it picks just like the perfect moment to do it.
Yeah,
But I was more laughing at what?
I was gonna say I need somebody that understands the algorithm, the mystery, the black hole that is the algorithm, and tell me which point in the video is the one where they grab the screenshot. Like, is there secretly a robot that is like, "Ooh, that's hideous. Let me hold it there." I don't know. Either that, or I'm gonna
Maybe.
turn into a robot and I'm gonna try and not make any brash movements. I don't know if
And
I
then
can
we'll
hold it.
wonder, if you get Botox, nothing's moving.
I can't. I can't. I wish I could. I wish I could talk without, moving my whole body. But yeah, anyway. So, first and foremost, thank you for accommodating my schedule today. Thank you to our fans who are worried this morning. Where are you guys?
It was interesting to get some notices. Like, well, part of it too was my newsletter went out late. Normally, it's like there to greet everybody when they wake up in the morning, and it wasn't because I was deep in the trenches of a wet sweat lodge last night, and we had someone visiting that came to lead Sweat Lodge, and it was like a now or never kind of thing. And so we went ahead. We were trusting the weather, and we maybe shouldn't have, but so now I've got I don't know how many wet blankets still in my backyard that I need to get cleaned up and ready because the next Sweat Lodge is on Sunday.
Well, I hope the sun comes out for you because I can't even imagine picking up big, heavy, wet blankets. But yeah, so well, glad you survived, glad you made it, glad you did the thing. We always say, well, not we, they say, you only regret the things you did not do. So good to have done it, no matter the price. It's all good.
Yeah, and what I will say too is Sweat Lodge kind of goes along with our theme today of ancestral healing, because one of the things that we do when we introduce ourselves to the Sweat Lodge is not only say who we are, but who we come from. And so there is always that honoring of those that came before you. And so I don't know about all, but I feel like in most indigenous cultures, ancestry is very important to them. And what was interesting to me when I first moved to Florida, like when I lived in Wisconsin, you could ask everybody, like, what is your heritage? Where do your ancestors come from? And everybody knows, In Wisconsin, it's a lot of German and Irish and Polish and Dutch and Norwegian and English and but you ask people and they know, some people are like Heinz 57 because they've got like everything in there, but people know. And when I moved to Florida, like there were a couple times I was in conversations with people and they had no idea what their ancestry was.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of families within my own circle that, their families have been in this country for so many generations. And if you really think, back in the day at the beginning, so to speak, the goal was to stop becoming whatever else you were and solely become American. And so American became its own, individual culture. And, we didn't, not we in my house, but folks didn't want to speak their native tongue in their homes because they were trying to assimilate. So it's not surprising that a lot of cultures have, the cultures are there, but knowing that ancestry has disappeared. For myself, with my parents getting divorced when I was younger, and just a lot of family dynamics, I lost out on a lot of the story down my paternal lineage, about where names came from and who was this or that or whatever. I mean, like So in a lot, even though my maternal lineage, I have more information on, my paternal lineage, I really don't. So for me, talking about ancestors is actually a little bit of a struggle because I don't have that personal experience that I can tell you, oh, my fifth generation great grandfather, planted this tree, and you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that. So it's
Well, and
really
that's going back
interesting.
a bit far. Like, I don't know. I don't know so far back. And like when you were talking, my dad often talks about when he was a kid, like a lot of the elders in the family did speak German, but the children were not allowed to. And, because the wars had just ended, and especially like German people, oh, are you a Nazi? You don't want to um, put that out there. Even though obviously like no one in my family was, because they were all in this country, they weren't over there. But yeah, they would get punished as kids if they were caught speaking German. But to me, it's kind of sad because he was like, when he was a kid, he understood it, but now as an adult, he doesn't remember any of it because he was never allowed to speak it.
Yeah.
So,
It's really fascinating.
um, so, and ancestral healing like is a very interesting topic to me, and it is not always, but often it is a part of healing sessions with me because it will come up through the muscle testing as to this problem that you're having, like where is the origin of it. And sometimes it is from an ancestor, and like you can even like muscle test to find out, like, oh, it was your mother's father's mother that had this initial wound. That I think the best way that we explain the carriage of it is through cellular memory, because through DNA, like things are passed through, and so we can carry traumas that come from past generations. And I've even had people come and tell me, like, once we've cleared something like that, like they notice a shift in their parents and their grandparents and their children, and is it real or not, or is it all made up in our head? There's no way to prove it, but right. It is a really interesting experience to observe and for people to see and feel the shift of doing that.
Yeah. And, for me, like I always say, the truth is that it doesn't matter if it's real or not, or this or that. It's, do you feel better? What is your effective result? So don't get caught up on the mechanics of, your ancestors, right? I think one of the most profound moments I had in, I don't know what meditation, what event or breath work or something I was doing. And I had mentally gone into it thinking, lamenting, gosh, I feel like part of me like doesn't have ancestors, because I'm so disconnected from such a big part of my story. And in that moment, the message that I received was all the ancestors are your ancestors, and that for me was very powerful, because when I was studying Buddhism, we had talked about reincarnation a lot, and we had talked about because there's an infinite number of beings and an infinite number of recycling and reincarnation, at some point we've all been each other's ancestors, and we've all been each other's mothers, and we've all been each other's children. And I just love the unifying thought of that, like regardless of whatever belief system you subscribe to, just it's a beautiful concept to think, you are not separate from me, we are not different, we are one and the same. And so whether it's supporting you on this plane that we're together, or out there, it's more than one person has your back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's been interesting to me also. My dad's dad, which was the first grandparent that I lost, I think I went and did the math recently. I think I was 11 when he passed away. And I do remember him, like I have lots of memories of him, because whenever we would go to their house, he would always play the harmonica for us. That was the only instrument I ever remember hearing him play, but apparently he was quite the musician and could play every instrument except the piano because his fingers were wider than a piano key. So like he couldn't hit one key at a time. But I remember sitting on his lap and him playing his harmonica. And but I didn't have as great of a connected relationship with him just because I was younger when he passed. You know, my both of my grandmas, I was for sure in my 20s and maybe in my 30s when they passed. So I had, you know, much greater connection in this plane with them. But he has been showing up to mediums. Mm-hmm. And even someone came to my office for a one-to-one a few weeks ago, and the guy was like, he wasn't sure if it was safe to share this with me, and I was like laughing. I'm like, I think it's like beyond obvious that you could share that you see dead people with me. But he's like, there's this older gentleman behind you, and like I showed him the pictures of like all the older men that are connected to me that have passed. And when he saw my dad's dad, he's like, that's him. Wow. And so it's interesting. So I feel like, you know, he's around, and I suspect that he's very interested in the work that I'm doing and is there supporting me. I do need to find, you know, this person they weren't really functioning as a medium and wasn't there to, you know, go in depth and give me tons of messages on it. But I do feel like I need to make some effort to connect with him and see like why he's making his presence known to me. And, you know, maybe it is just supportive, but maybe he has some information for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the things we were talking about was talking to your family and finding out the stories that you can find out and, you know, just seeing what resonates. And I'll tell you how that showed up in my life. So, you know, I'm a lifelong, you know, easy crier. Today someone said that with this the heat in you know, I've been talking about like dry skin because of it's so cold outside when you go in, you know, and she says that she gets dry right here, and I'm like, I have never in my life had this under eye part dry ever because I cry like 900 times a day. So I'm always lubricated. But I will never forget, I was chatting with all of my aunts one day, and they said, you know, the how you cry reminds us so much of our grandmother. So my mother's grandmother, right? And I never met her, but that was the generation that came here from Cuba, and my grandmother had given birth to my grandmother, and then I forget how many siblings. I think there were maybe 5 total, but in any event, only one of them came to the United States. The other ones stayed in Cuba, even though they were old, you know, but they just had decided to stay. So the story goes that my great grandmother would miss her children and then cry, you know, sitting out tending the clothesline or something, cry because she hadn't received a letter from them. But then the day that the letter would show up, she would cry because she was so happy that she got a letter. And I'm like in that moment, there was such a bit of healing for me because I always thought, oh my gosh, I'm such a crier. What's wrong with me? And then when I heard that story, I was like, what? I come by this honestly, like, this is not even my fault. Like, it's just, you know, it's just who I am. I get to cry because of the sad things and I get to cry because of the happy things. And you know what? I'm really good at it. And it turns out my great grandmother was good at it too. So that actually was very healing for me, you know? Yeah.
I love that. And, you know, there's no shame in crying. I used to cry a lot more. What?
I said, I'm beyond that. We're beyond.
Yeah. But crying is just, it's a physical expression of emotion. And feel your feels. Feel them all.
For real. The other place that I was thinking about ancestral connections was out in nature and things like that. So I'm really looking to our 4 elements retreat because we are going to be knee deep in nature the whole entire time. Even when you're in the house, you're going to be looking out the window and seeing nothing but mountains and trees and waterfalls and stuff like that. So it will be quite interesting to see the connections that our attendees are going to make because they'll finally have a quiet moment, right? They'll finally be relaxed enough to hear, because isn't that part of it, right? Like something keeps trying to get your attention and you're too busy and you're not paying attention and you're missing the messages. So if you don't have time to quiet your mind in your house, and I get it, I have kids, it always feels like a train station here, spending that time in nature is such a portal, in every direction. So
Absolutely. And even I also hear a lot of stories of people that don't want to connect to ancestry because of wounds and whatnot. And the bottom line is, like, you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for your ancestors. And I think, isn't it you sometimes that talk about like how many people came before you that, came together for this exact expression that is you to be here. And while, it might have been a tumultuous, bad experience, like, as long as you're holding them to that, like, you're punishing yourself. And so you have to find a space to release and forgive that. But also getting to a space of gratitude that you wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. And, they did the best they could with what they had at the moment. And, but we're all lucky you're here. And so, if ancestry is something you've been avoiding because of whatever negativity that exists there, I'm just putting out a little invitation there that maybe you want to open up and explore and create some healing, just to free yourself and give yourself the space to move forward and create something better.
Yeah. Talking about like gifts from your ancestors, I have a family friend who is in her early 20s. As a matter of fact, today is her birthday. I have to give her a shout out. I have to call her. I got to call her. You know who you are. Anyhow, and one day she said to me, I really want to get a nose job because she doesn't like the shape of her nose. And when I tell you that I started crying, I mean, of course I started crying, but I started crying and I'm like, you are going to wipe off your ancestry from your face. Like your face is, and by PS, she's gorgeous. Like she's gorgeous. And, everybody is gorgeous in their own way, right? Like we have this, they keep coming out with all these stupid articles of like, oh, symmetry means you're beautiful. That's ridiculous. Like you're beautiful because of who you are. And so I'm like, do you understand that the nose that you have is the nose of kings and queens and, just hundreds of people? Like it's really a lot of people. I don't know the math on it, but it's a lot of people that did amazing things, right? That left one country and came to another, that whose ancestors had left a different country, people who were farmers, people who were like, there's so much of a story written right on your face, and I'll tell you, it's really, for me, it's very comforting when I see people that have little features that remind me of my own family. Just this morning, I met a gentleman who's got these piercing blue eyes and he's got these super high cheekbones. And I'm like, man, this guy has got to be from Spain because he looks just like my grandmother, Now, I don't know if he was or wasn't. And he's probably like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm from Georgia or whatever. But there to me, there is a healing message in that as well, is whatever it is that you look like, think about it. Someone looked at you and said, man, I love this person so much, I'm going to give birth to them. And somebody before that said, man, this woman is so beautiful, I'm going to make a baby with her. And somebody before that said the same thing and the same thing. And the like, stop undoing the work. I get it. You want to look perfect. I get it. Okay, fine. Whatever perfect means. But before you chop it off, like, man, just recognize that that's part of your story, right? If it doesn't, I've always said, in Miami, I might be fat, but you take my same body and put me in Haiti and I'm a queen. So it can't be about the body. It's got to be about the geography. So if you don't like how you look, move. Get better friends. That's what I gotta say about that.
Yeah.
because
Um, and you did mention like connecting with nature, but we also have our San Miguel de Allende Day of the Dead retreat coming up later this year, and I love that this is an honoring of the ancestry, and yes, they make a huge big party of it, but there's also a very sacred aspect to this of honoring the ancestors. And it's like so often like we think about our deceased loved ones and it's just about sadness, whereas for them it's a celebration. And I was really lucky this past Day of the Dead too. So the chief who runs my spot lodge is Mexican, and he and his, I don't want to say tribe, but his group of people here, every year they do their Day of the Dead festival. And up until this year, it had always been closed to the public. And this year they opened it up and we were allowed to go and watch this ritual. And it was just so incredible and powerful to be in the energy of that. And like literally, I felt like all of their ancestors coming as they called them in. It was like this little space with, maybe 100 people or so, but it felt like there were like thousands of people there, just like the energy. And just how beautiful how they always, every year make this effort to remember and celebrate and honor their ancestors. And I think that's really powerful. And, and going and experiencing that in Mexico, in San Miguel de Allende, which is a magical space by itself. And then the fact that we have the most magical retreat center there, like it's all incredible. We're not selling seats for that yet, but if you're interested, definitely like reach out to us and we'll put you on the waiting list. So as soon as we have the doors open to go in and reserve your spot, we will let you know.
And just because you reminded me, I just want to talk about reaching out to ancestors and using Day of the Dead as part of your grief healing process, right? Because we all know grief is a lifelong journey. It's not like a 12-step program that, gets finished in 30 days. Like it is something that goes forever. And I think that we have such a taboo over death in this particular country that we don't know how to talk about people who have passed without feeling really sad about it. And I think that that is such a missed opportunity because, you and I know at this age, we've lost a lot of people in our lives, or even children who have lost their parents, small. Like, what is a bigger gift to you? I might cry. What is a bigger gift to you than having somebody ask you to tell you a story about the person who has passed? Hey, Julietta, do you remember when your mom told you this or that or whatever? Or what was it like the first time that your, grandparent did this or that? Or, hey, I know your partner, passed. I know it's been a year. Can you share a memory with me? And I just think that that's such a beautiful thing. And if it feels too awkward for you to do that, an event like this can help you connect and, just cuddle. I don't know what the right word is with your missing person. Because I do think that we're missing that in our daily lives, on a very tiny scale. I had a dog once and the dog passed away. And this was as an adult. And my mom came to my house, and in her effort to do me a favor, she cleared everything out of the house that had to do with the dog, the cage, the bowl, the towels, like all the things. And she was trying to help me, bless her heart. But what she really did was like remove the existence of this being that I love so much, And so it really truncated my grieving, So You know, when we see little kids in school and their parents have passed away, nobody wants to bring it up, right? Or nobody wants to invite you to the daddy daughter dance because you might not have a daddy, right? Or whatever the story might be. And I just want to encourage people, like, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask for people, you know, that have passed. Don't just ask, how are you doing? Like, shitty. There's no great answer to that, right? Like, no, thrilled. Yeah, my family member is still dead. That's not healing. Healing is, hey, I hope you're doing okay. Do you have like a really cool story you could share? Because I really want to hear about, you know, what was your favorite part of this person? Or is there anything you'd like to share? You know, things for me, that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for me. And I've noticed, particularly parents who have lost children, everyone is terrified that their person is going to be forgotten. You know, people are terrified that the person they love is now just a PowerPoint somewhere, you know. And I think you get to remember their wisdom. I think you get to get advice from them through other people talking to you, right? Through other people bringing things up, you know. I'm so thrilled that Facebook Memories exists. It pops up every single day, and unfortunately, the older I get, the more people on there are coming to me from beyond. But I'm being reminded, you know, I'm being reminded of their smiles, of their energy, of, you know, just all the good things. And I think that's a real big part of healing. So when it comes to our retreat, you know, one of the things is the ofrenda, you know, where we put together a little, I don't know, altar, for lack of the better term, honoring those ancestors, you know, and how cool is that? So yeah, don't be afraid.
Ooh, you got anything else about ancestral healing?
I, I think I probably talked more than my fair share. Thank God no one's keeping notes on this.
You don't know. Maybe someone is.
Maybe someone
Anyway,
is.
but I think that I think that pretty much wraps it up. And you know, if anybody is curious, if they're carrying ancestral stuff around and want some support and clearing that out, reach out. I'd be happy to help you with that. And you know, check out. We do have the webpage up already. We just don't have the pricing, and because we're waiting on Mexico for some finalization, because you know everything is changing all the time, and so we got to get accurate pricing before we can set that up for sure. And yeah.
The Georgia retreat keeps selling, so we are running out of spots. So if that's something you are even remotely interested in, chat with us. When are we doing our webinar? That's already out.
Yeah, March 19th, I think it is.
March 19th. Let's double check. If it is, it's not on my calendar. What have I done?
Oh.
Check it. We'll double check.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a webinar put together. So we're going to give a bit of a teaching on some of the things you can do to connect with 4 elements and kind of get your practice going and get started. We'll have a little secret surprise in there too. And our big hope is that you join us for the retreat. So let us know how we can help you make it happen, because it's important.
Yes. All right. Well, it's great chatting with you today. And I want to wish everybody a magical day.
All right. I'm freezing my face for the algorithm.